A few weeks ago, I went to Nashville and I interviewed George Kamel, another personal finance YouTuber that's under Dave Ramsey's network. And one of the most interesting things about George is that he went from broke and in debt to a millionaire in under 10 years. George cites a lot of Dave Ramsey's methods that helped him get there, which can be polarizing to some. But in general, I find those philosophies to be pretty great for those people that are trying to get out of debt and stay motivated with their money. So I hope you enjoy this interview. Okay, so I'm here with George Kamel, and he went from broke to millionaire in under 10 years. Actually, you were in debt, is that correct?
Yeah, when I started here at Ramsey, it was in 2013, I was 40 grand in debt. 36,000 in student loans, $4,000 in credit card debt. And it wasn't a fun time, that's for sure.
I don't think it would be fun. Can you outline the steps on basically how you got out of debt and also to net worth millionaire? Because it sounds like a really daunting task for just under 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, when you start this Ramsey plan, which is what I did, you feel like there's a mountain ahead of you, and then you just see one step ahead. You don't know what the next 5 steps look like. So that's what I love about the baby steps that Dave has laid out. So it starts with a $1,000 starter emergency fund. And luckily, I had that. Like, I wasn't so broke that I didn't know how to come up with that. I had $1,000, but it was like paycheck to paycheck. Even with my first salary job here, most of my paycheck after taxes just went right back out the door. So once I got $1,000, the next step was baby step 2, pay off all consumer debt using the debt snowball method. And I know there's a lot of arguments out there, debt avalanche versus snowball. And instead of arguing, I wanted to be doing. And so I was like, I'm going to try this. It worked for millions. And so I started paying off my debts, smallest to largest. And my smallest debt at the time was a baby student loan. I pulled my credit report and saw every single debt I had, the amounts, and I just laid them all out. And I attacked that little one with a vengeance. And that meant sacrifice. I wasn't eating out. I was eating lean cuisines. And I'm so sick of lean cuisines now, I couldn't stomach one. But I would wait for them to go on sale at the grocery store, 5 for $10. So it was $2 a meal, and I would calculate it and know exactly how much I would spend on food. I was doing side jobs like Uber and Lyft, marketing consulting, building websites, helping people launch podcasts, anything to make an extra buck. And that helped me create the margin to pay off that debt with the debt snowball.
Okay, so what you just said there were 2 really powerful things. First, you started an emergency fund. You got to $1,000. You didn't go for the 3 to 6 months emergency fund. And then number 2, you started paying off debt in a snowball method. So let's explain that. So it's basically you pay off the smallest balance first, no matter the interest rate. But what you just both said there was what was really interesting to me is it's very psychological. Sometimes the best money decision isn't actually mathematically sound, right? Because in a mathematically sound environment, you would just go for the highest interest rate first, or you might even try to save up a larger emergency fund. So tell me more about your decisions around that, because I think that could help a lot of people out there.
Yeah, well, Dave Ramsey has been doing this stuff for over 30 years. And what he found early on doing this Ramsey show as he got calls was that personal finance is 80% behavior. It's 20% head knowledge. We can Google all the right ways to do money, but it takes us actually creating the habits and actions necessary to get there. And there's so many psychological hurdles when it comes to debt. On paper, sure, we can talk about math all day, but we live in reality with emotion. And so that meant I needed to actually feel some progress. Otherwise, I'm not going to keep doing this. Why would you sacrifice if you're not going to see progress quick, early, and sustaining? And so that's what I love about the debt snowball. When you ignore the interest rate, it's not about math. It's about that one next debt. That's it. What's the next smallest debt? You free up a payment. Now that payment gets applied to the next debt. So the snowball starts to pick up more snow as you keep going, to where when you're on your last debt, I mean, you're just hooting and hollering and cheering because you have so much margin you're throwing at it that it's gone pretty quick. And so in 18 months, I was completely debt-free of that consumer debt, and I was on to building my 3 to 6 month emergency fund.
Okay, so now why is it $1,000? Because I assume $1,000 10 years ago isn't the same as, let's say, $1,000 today.
We've heard it all. People are like, well, I think it should be 1 month of expenses, and I think it should be 3 months. And I'm like, most people are paycheck to paycheck and broke. They can't fathom saving up a whole month of bills ahead of time before they even tackle debt. And so what Dave found early on was he just told people, go pay off debt, go pay off debt. And they would fall off the wagon because they would have this one little ankle biter emergency, the flat tire, the unexpected bill, and it would throw them off the whole plan. So he said, all right, $1,000 as a little buffer between you and life so that you're not falling off the horse constantly. Because most people don't have $1,000 to begin with. 4 in 10 have 0 in savings. And so it's a good problem to have if we're arguing about should it be 1,000 or 2,000 when most people are broke. So, I think even 30 years ago, it wasn't enough. An HVAC 30 years ago still was more than $1,000. And so those emergencies can hit. And when they do, we tell people, hey, just pause the baby steps, stack up as much cash as possible, save up, cash flow it until you're back on track.
Okay, so you paid off the debt. And what's your lifestyle like at this point? Because I assume it just must be pretty, I don't want to say depressing, but it sounds like you just weren't doing anything besides saving money and just like adding it to your net worth.
Well, I feel like I was a 23, 24-year-old. So what do you want to do at 23, 24? You want to hang out with friends and go out. And I realized, like, if your friends are actual good friends, they're going to understand the journey you're on. But a lot of people are going to go, hey, man, come on, you're going to, now it's called loud budgeting. We made it trendy now to be like, hey, I don't have the money for that. I can't spend that right now.
How are you loud budgeting in 2024?
I'm eating my flatmates' food and not my own.
I still enjoyed life. We still had friends over and did movie nights. I just limited that kind of luxurious spending because I had a long-term goal in mind.
And what was that long-term goal? Was it to become a millionaire, or was it just like, let's just be financially comfortable?
It wasn't this goal I was tracking to become a millionaire. When you're negative net worth, it feels like, okay, we're not even going to attempt that right now. My goal was just, how can I create a financial foundation to where I have no debt and I have a pile of money in the bank in this emergency fund?
Sure.
And so once I hit that, I was super excited because I was done paying for the past. I was ready to start building for the future. And that's when I began investing 15% of my income into our Roth 401k here at Ramsey.
Yeah, so you're just really focused on passive investing and just really working on your active income and just kind of setting it and forgetting it. What was the biggest moment in which you grew your net worth? Was it when you got married and then bought a house? Is that correct? Because I was doing a little bit of research.
Oh, yeah.
And I learned that.
This guy knows his stuff.
Yeah.
I would say one of the greatest wealth hacks I had at my disposal that is a true unfair advantage is dual income, no kids. And we've seen now the Dink stuff has gone bonkers on social media, thanks to our friend Johnny Finance. He made it cool. But that was a huge piece of the puzzle. When I met my wife, she was debt-free. We got married with no debt and a pile of money in the bank. I had owned one townhome prior, so I had a little bit of equity from that after the sale. And so that really started us off way ahead of our peers. So that allowed us to save up a down payment for our first home together fairly quickly. Even with side hustles and still aggressively tackling this goal, we were able to save up 6 figures to put down on our first townhome together.
Okay, and you would attribute that to your biggest growth in net worth to getting to the millionaire status?
I think savings rate. I mean, people always are like, well, it was your income. I was like, we were both in entry-level jobs. We weren't making 6 figures. I didn't have a 6-figure salary until we combined our incomes together when we got married.
Would you do anything differently to get there faster, knowing what you know today?
Ooh. People will give me flack because I had worked at the Apple store back in like 08, 09 for like a year and some change. So I had a little bit of, 401k money. I had the employee stock purchase program.
Yeah.
So I had rolled over the 401k to an IRA from Apple, from Roth to Roth. And then I had some stocks for the employee stock purchase program. And so I sold off those stocks. And people are, Graham Stephan's giving me crap. Like, dude, do you know how much those stocks would be worth today? And I'm like,
yeah.
Do you know how much faster I was out of debt and able to build wealth because I sold those stocks? And that helped me finish off my debt payoff and get the down payment. So I think that people would say, would you go back and keep those stocks? I really don't care. I don't live in the what ifs. I'm thinking about the future instead of what could have been. And so there's really nothing I would do differently. Having that emergency fund in place protected us when stuff came up. It didn't hinder us from investing and building wealth because we had that ready to protect us. Because I think your greatest wealth building tool is your income. Your second greatest wealth building tool is a spouse who is on board. Like, marry the right person. And I know that's easy. We all hope we're marrying the right person. Yeah. But that's a huge factor in your wealth building, is having a spouse who's on board. And luckily, I met mine here at Ramsey, and so
perfect.
We didn't have to even talk about what are your money values? Obviously we grew up with different backgrounds, but that was a huge blessing.
I actually read in the Millionaire Next Door that many next door millionaires are people that you wouldn't assume to be great accumulators of wealth. They are, because they have it's a partnership of a couple that are both frugally minded and money minded. And what he says in the book is like, you can have one person playing a lot of offense, but if the other spouse or the other person is playing bad defense, as in they're spending too much, it actually kills your wealth accumulation.
That's huge. And that's where the budget was so helpful. When my wife and I got married, we combined bank accounts. We only have one checking account, not his and hers, and she does what she wants with her money, and we have the shared one for bills. We kept it simple, and we didn't have a credit score when we got our first home, and so we used manual underwriting and did a no-score loan, and it was very reasonable, and we aggressively paid that off. And so that was a huge next piece of the wealth-building puzzle for us, was having a paid-for home that then appreciated in value, while we are investing 15% into our 401ks for years.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think you could have gotten there in under 10 years without a spouse?
Ooh. I think it would have taken longer.
Longer?
Yeah, I think it would have maybe been more like a 14, 15-year journey for me. But I do feel that because people are like, well, you're only half a millionaire. I'm like, it's our house. Like, our names are on everything. So, people, it's like saying, well, if you went bankrupt, you wouldn't be a millionaire anymore. I'm like, sure, yes, hypothetically speaking, that's how that works. But, we have a household net worth of over $1 million now with our paid-for home plus our 401ks, our actual assets there. And so I do think it takes longer if you're single. And I don't recommend marriage as a wealth-building hack. Get married because it's the right next step. But once you do get married, you need to talk about this stuff with your spouse. You need to go through Financial Peace University and get on the same page with money, because if you're not, it's only going to hold you back and cause resentment.
Okay, so to sum up, you basically lived way under your means. You built an emergency fund up. You paid off all your consumer debt first, and then you did debt snowball to get to basically even. You started continuing to save 15% of your gross or your after-tax income?
Gross income.
Of your gross income. And then you got married. You had a great partner who also has similar money values, and you've been continuing your lifestyle, obviously, and you're still saving aggressively, I assume.
Yeah. And with a paid-for house, that moves us into baby step 7, to where we're just building wealth and giving. So we've increased our investing. We've increased our giving. We now have a daughter, so she's 5 months old today. Shout out to Mia. And we have a 529 plan, and we're putting money away in that. And so it just is so nice to have peace and no debt payments. And there's ways we could have gotten there faster if we leveraged the right way perfectly, but man, that would have added a whole lot of stress and risk to our life and caused some marital problems. And so I'm glad we've done it a very simple way, maybe too simple for some people out there, but it works for everyone.
Okay, last thing. If somebody has under a net worth of $100,000 right now, they're debt-free completely, what would you suggest their biggest hack should be?
Ooh.
Of everything we've talked about today.
Net worth under $100,000, but they're debt-free.
Yep.
Do they have an emergency fund?
Let's say they have 3 months saved up.
Okay, so that puts them at baby step 4. So if you depending on your income, if you have under $100,000 net worth, I don't know what they're making, but I would invest 15% of their gross income into tax-advantaged retirement accounts.
Okay.
I love
401k.
Roth personally. I'd like to know that if I have $2 million in Roth at retirement, I have $2 million to spend tax-free, and I can withdraw that tax-free. So I'm a big fan of that. And on top of that, I would focus on their next goal, which is probably home ownership, and do it the right way. Try to save up that 10 to 20% down and get a reasonable, modest first home. It doesn't need to be the dream home. And then focus on paying that off while investing and live your life too. You don't want to have a flat tire. If you're only investing and you refuse to go on vacation, your life's going to suck. If you only go on vacation, you don't save, your life's going to suck later.
That brings up one more question, because you just brought up something really interesting. If rates were different when you bought your house, if rates were the rates that they're at right now, do you think that would have affected your building of wealth? Yeah.
It would affect the home purchase price, because it's going to affect your payment, and it's going to take longer to pay off with the higher interest rate. I mean, we had a rate of like 3.625 back in 2019. Now with rates at, we did a 15-year fixed. If rates were at where they are today, it'd be like 6.5 probably.
Yeah.
And so that's almost double.
Yeah.
So you're talking it would have slowed down our progress. Probably not by too much, because we're weird and aggressive, but it would have hurt the ability to get that principal down when you're trying to knock down that high interest. So I do think it would have slowed it down, but not in such a way that we wouldn't be able to live life how we've been living.
Nice.
Just would have maybe taken an extra year or two.
Okay. Well, super inspirational. Thank you for being on the channel. Make sure to subscribe to both me and George Kamel.
Yeah.
And I'll see you guys in the next one. All right.
Thanks, man.
Peace.
All right, so that wraps it up. A huge thank you to George for having me out in Nashville, and I hope to do more collaborations like this in the future. If you liked hearing about George's journey, make sure to check out my next video right here that I'm gonna leave up. It's on how to go from $0 to $100,000 in under 1 year. I hope to see you guys in that video or in the next one. All right, peace.